In a time long before history, when the world was young and the gods walked among mortals, there was a kingdom nestled deep in the valley of Erythea. This kingdom, ruled by the wise King Aegon, was a land of beauty and prosperity. But its peace was shattered by the emergence of the Chimera, a terrifying creature with the head of a lion, the body of a goat, and the tail of a serpent. The beast terrorized the lands, demanding sacrifices to quench its insatiable hunger. Among the unfortunate was Lyra, the daughter of King Aegon. Renowned for her radiant beauty and kind heart, she was loved by all in the kingdom. One fateful morning, the Chimera's shadow loomed over the castle. It spoke in a voice that shook the very earth, demanding that Lyra be given to it as a sacrifice. Refusal, it warned, would bring ruin to the entire kingdom. Lyra, courageous despite her fear, stepped forward to save her people. "If my life will spare the innocent, I will go," she declared. Her words broke the hearts of her family and her people, but none dared challenge the Chimera. News of Lyra's plight reached a distant village where a young warrior named Kale lived. Kale was known for his unmatched skill with the sword and his unyielding courage. Upon hearing the tale, he felt a fire ignite within him. "I cannot stand idle while innocence suffers," he declared. Determined to save Lyra, Kale armed himself with his enchanted blade, forged by the gods themselves, and set out for the Chimera's lair atop Mount Phobos. The journey was treacherous. Kale traversed dense forests, crossed raging rivers, and scaled the jagged cliffs of the mountain. Along the way, he encountered creatures both wondrous and perilous. A phoenix that gifted him a feather for protection, a sly nymph who tested his resolve, and a gargantuan cyclops who guarded the path to the summit. With each trial, Kale's bravery and wit carried him forward. Finally, Kale stood at the entrance of the Chimera's lair, a cavern that reeked of sulfur and despair. Inside, he found Lyra, chained and surrounded by bones of the Chimera's previous victims. The beast prowled nearby, its fiery breath illuminating the cavern in a menacing glow. "Leave, mortal, if you value your life," the Chimera growled. Kale tightened his grip on his sword. "I will not abandon her to your cruelty," he replied. With a roar, the Chimera attacked, its three heads snapping and spewing fire. The battle was fierce, shaking the very mountain. Kale's enchanted blade clashed against the Chimera's tough hide, each strike weakening the beast. Drawing on every ounce of strength and strategy, Kale finally drove his sword into the Chimera's heart, ending its reign of terror. With the beast slain, the chains binding Lyra shattered. She fell into Kale's arms, tears of relief streaming down her face. "You risk your life for someone you do not know," she whispered. Kale smiled. "No one deserves to live in fear." The two made their way back to the kingdom, where they were greeted as heroes. King Aegon, filled with gratitude, offered Kale anything he desired. Kale, however, sought nothing but to ensure Lyra's safety and happiness. Over time, their bond deepened, and they grew to love one another. Lyra and Kale's union became a symbol of courage and hope for generations. Their tale was passed down as a reminder that even in the darkest times, bravery and love could conquer any monster. Years later, Kale and Lyra ruled Erythea together, ushering in an era of unparalleled peace and prosperity. Their love became a beacon, inspiring poets and bards to compose songs that resonated through the ages. Yet, their happiness was not without challenge. One day, a messenger arrived bearing grave news. The Harpy Queen, Aello, and her winged minions had begun raiding villages along the eastern border. Their attacks were swift and merciless, leaving destruction in their wake. Kale knew he could not let this threat fester. Lyra, now a queen, as wise as she was compassionate, stood by Kale's side. "You are not alone in this fight," she said, her eyes gleaming with determination. Together, they devised a plan to confront the Harpy Queen. Kale would lead a battalion to drive the Harpies back, while Lyra would rally the kingdom's allies for support. Kale's journey to the eastern border was fraught with danger. The Harpies' aerial assaults tested the limits of his soldiers' courage. But Kale, wielding his enchanted blade and the phoenix feather Lyra had woven into his armor, inspired his men to persevere. Meanwhile, Lyra's diplomacy brought reinforcements from neighboring realms, uniting the region against a common foe. The final confrontation took place at the cliffs of Solara, where Aello awaited with her Harpy army. The battle was fierce, the sky darkened by the Harpies' wings. Kale faced Aello in single combat, their clash echoing across the cliffs. With Lyra's love as his guiding strength, Kale struck the decisive blow, banishing Aello and her minions from the mortal realm. As they celebrated their victory, an old soothsayer appeared in the royal court. Her eyes glowed with an otherworldly light as she spoke of a dark prophecy. "Beware, rulers of Erythea," she said. "The Chimera's death has awakened an ancient force. In the shadowed depths of the abyssal rift, the Leviathan stirs. Its hunger will not be sated by mere mortals." Kale and Lyra exchanged worried glances. The Leviathan, a creature of legend, was said to be as old as the gods themselves. Its wrath could drown entire kingdoms. The soothsayer handed them a map marked with the location of the abyssal rift. Only the heart of Eos, a relic hidden in the sunken temple, can banish the Leviathan, she whispered before vanishing into thin air. Determined to protect their people once more, Kale and Lyra set out together on a perilous journey. Their path led them through the treacherous Mistwood forest, where illusions threatened to drive them mad. They faced trials that tested not only their strength, but also their trust in each other. At the sunken temple, they discovered the heart of Eos, a glowing gem of immense power. But the Leviathan's presence was already upon them. The ground trembled as the monstrous serpent emerged from the depths, its massive form blotting out the sun. Kale and Lyra fought valiantly, combining the heart's magic with Kale's sword and Lyra's cunning strategies. In a climactic battle that shook the heavens, they managed to seal the Leviathan within the abyssal rift, using the heart of Eos to trap it for eternity. Exhausted but victorious, they returned to Erythea, their bond stronger than ever. Their people hailed them as saviors, but Kale and Lyra knew their journey was far from over. They had proven that love and courage could overcome any challenge, but the world was vast, and its mysteries endless. Together, they vowed to face whatever came next, hand in hand, as rulers, warriors, and eternal partners. Years passed in the kingdom of Erythea, and peace reigned once more. Kale and Lyra's names became legends, their tale a source of inspiration for future generations. The kingdom flourished under their rule, and they had children who grew up with the same fierce courage and compassion that had defined their parents. But even in times of peace, the shadows of the world stirred. One quiet evening, as Kale and Lyra sat together in their royal gardens, a strange figure approached. It was a cloaked traveler, his features obscured by the hood that shrouded his face. In his hand, he carried an ancient scroll, its edges worn with age. "I have come to seek your help," the traveler said, his voice low and raspy. Kale rose, his hand instinctively resting on the hilt of his sword, but Lyra, ever wise and calm, nodded for him to stand down. "What brings you to our kingdom, traveler?" she asked. The man handed over the scroll. "A great evil stirs beneath the earth," he began, "far older than the Leviathan. It is called the Harrowed One, a being of darkness and despair, bound deep within the core of the world. Its awakening is inevitable, and when it rises, all life will be consumed by its hunger." Kale and Lyra exchanged a worried glance. The name Harrowed One was unfamiliar, but the gravity in the traveler's tone left no doubt about the seriousness of his words. "What can be done to stop this?" Lyra inquired. The traveler hesitated before answering. "The only way to prevent the Harrowed One from escaping its prison is to find the Heart of Night, a relic that has been hidden for centuries. Only with it can the curse that binds the harrowed one be renewed, sealing it away for eternity. The Heart of Night was a legend in its own right, said to be forged from the essence of the first night when darkness fell upon the world. It was said to be located within the depths of the moonlit cavern, a place so perilous that none who sought it had ever returned. Without hesitation, Kale and Lyra knew what they must do. "We will find the Heart of Night," Kale declared. "We will ensure this evil does not rise again." The traveler handed them the map to the moonlit cavern. "The journey will test every part of you," he warned. "Beware, for the path is not only filled with physical dangers, but also with temptations that will seek to tear your bond apart." Undeterred, the royal couple prepared for their journey. They gathered a small group of trusted allies, including a skilled archer named Isolde, a healer named Lyrian, and a brave warrior named Thalor. Together, they set off toward the moonlit cavern, traveling through vast deserts, treacherous mountains, and mystical lands where time seemed to bend and twist. Along the way, they faced challenges that pushed them to their limits. At the edge of a great desert, a fierce sandstorm appeared out of nowhere, and they were forced to navigate the blinding winds and swirling sands. In the heart of the dark forest, an ancient tree offered them a bargain, promising them great power in exchange for their souls. But Kale and Lyra, unwavering in their bond, rejected the offer, refusing to be swayed by the darkness. Finally, they reached the moonlit cavern, its entrance hidden behind a waterfall of silvery liquid that shimmered like the stars themselves. Inside, the cavern was a labyrinth of twisting tunnels and glowing crystal formations. At the heart of the cavern stood a pedestal, upon which rested the Heart of Night, its dark surface absorbing all light around it. But as Kale and Lyra approached, the shadows within the cavern began to move. The harrowed one, though still bound by its ancient chains, sought to free itself. Its whispers filled the air, tempting them with visions of power, immortality, and the ability to rewrite the world as they saw fit. For a moment, Kale felt his resolve waver, but then he felt Lyra's hand in his, steady and strong. Her presence reminded him of the love they shared, and together they faced the darkness. "We do not seek power for ourselves," Kale said, his voice steady. "We seek only to protect our world from the evils that would consume it." With Lyra's guidance and their combined strength, they placed the Heart of Night back into its pedestal, renewing the seal that bound the harrowed one. The cavern shook with a deafening roar, but in the end, the darkness receded, and the world was once again safe. Exhausted but victorious, Kale, Lyra, and their companions returned to Erythea. The harrowed one was sealed once more, and the kingdom could breathe easy. But Kale and Lyra knew that their journey was far from over. "Even the greatest evil cannot be vanquished forever," Lyra said as they stood together on the balcony of their castle, gazing out at the kingdom they had protected so fiercely. "But as long as we stand together, we will face whatever comes." Kale nodded, his hand finding hers once more. "Together, we are unstoppable." And so, their story continued, of love, courage, and the unwavering bond that protected their kingdom, no matter the darkness that threatened to rise. The peace that Kale and Lyra fought so hard to preserve seemed unshakable, but the world, as they both knew, was ever-changing, and its hidden dangers had yet to reveal themselves in full. One evening, as the kingdom celebrated the defeat of the Harrowed One, strange occurrences began to unfold. The stars above Erythea, once a constant guide for travelers, began to flicker erratically. The winds whispered in languages long forgotten, and the sky turned an unsettling shade of crimson at dusk. The very land seemed to tremble with unease, as though some ancient force was stirring beneath the earth once more. It was in this eerie atmosphere that a new visitor arrived at the gates of Erythea. A woman, draped in robes of midnight blue, with eyes that shimmered like the distant stars. She was no ordinary traveler. For the moment she stepped into the kingdom, the trembling of the earth ceased, and the flickering stars above stilled. "I am Astrea," the keeper of the celestial balance, she introduced herself, her voice soft but carrying a weight of authority that demanded respect. "I bring news that you may not wish to hear, but must." Kale and Lyra met her with caution but curiosity. "What is it that brings you here, Keeper?" Lyra asked. Astria's gaze swept over them with a knowing look, as though she had seen the course of their lives unfold long before they had. "There is a celestial alignment approaching," she said, "a convergence of the stars that occurs only once every 1,000 years. And with it, an ancient power known as the Astral Serpent will awaken." "The Astral Serpent?" Kale echoed, his brow furrowing. "I have never heard of it." Astria nodded. "It is a creature born of the stars, older than time itself. When the stars align, the serpent awakens from its slumber in the astral realm. Its hunger is infinite, and its power can rip through the very fabric of reality itself." Lyra's face darkened. "What can we do to stop it?" Astria's expression softened, but her eyes remained serious. "There is a way, but it is not without its sacrifices. The only force that can oppose the Astral Serpent is the light of the cosmos, a relic that was scattered across the world long ago to keep the serpent from ever returning. The light resides in the hands of those who are worthy, those who have faced their greatest fears and endured the trials of the heavens themselves." Kale and Lyra exchanged a glance, understanding that this would be yet another journey that would test their strength and bond. "Where do we find this relic?" Kale asked. Astria handed them an intricate map, one that seemed to shimmer with celestial energy. "The light of the cosmos is divided into 3 fragments," she explained. "The first lies beneath the Sea of Eternal Storms, guarded by the Leviathan's kin. The second is hidden within the heart of the infernal volcano, where the phoenix once reborn. And the final fragment rests in the forgotten temple of the celestial wardens, high in the floating isles of Azura." The task seemed impossible, but Kale and Lyra, resolute in their purpose, did not falter. "We will find the fragments," Lyra declared, "and we will keep the Astral Serpent from destroying the world." And so, once more, Kale and Lyra set out on a journey unlike any they had undertaken before. Their path would take them across seas, through fiery lands, and to skies untouched by mortal feet. The Sea of Eternal Storms was their first destination. It was a treacherous expanse, constantly racked by furious tempests and swirling maelstrom. As they sailed into the heart of the storm, they faced terrifying creatures that lurked in the depths, their glowing eyes just beneath the surface. At the center of the storm, they encountered the Leviathan's kin, a massive serpent-like creature, its scales as dark as the abyss. The creature attacked without warning, its great form coiling around their ship, trying to drag them beneath the waves. But Kale, wielding his enchanted sword, and Lyra, using her sharp intellect, managed to outwit the beast, luring it into a trap of their own design. With a final, mighty strike, Kale defeated the creature, and the first fragment of the light of the cosmos was theirs. Next, they ventured into the infernal volcano, where molten rivers flowed like veins of fire. The heat was unbearable, and the air thick with ash. As they navigated the treacherous paths of the volcano, they encountered the phoenix, reborn from the flames, its wings a brilliant blaze of red and gold. It was the guardian of the second fragment of the light. To prove their worth, they were tested by the phoenix, who summoned trials of fire, courage, and endurance. Kale and Lyra fought side by side, with Kale's strength and Lyra's strategies combining to overcome each challenge. In the end, the Phoenix, recognizing their unwavering resolve, allowed them to take the second fragment. Their final destination lay in the floating isles of Azura, a place where the very air shimmered with the power of the heavens. The temple of the celestial warden stood at the highest peak, guarded by fierce celestial beings who had not seen mortals in eons. The trials within the temple were unlike any the couple had faced, tests of wisdom, spirit, and heart. But with each step, they grew stronger, their bond deeper, their love unwavering. At the summit, they found the final fragment of the light of the cosmos, glowing brightly in the hands of an ancient celestial being who spoke of their journey. "You have proven yourselves worthy," the being said. "Now take the light and wield it against the serpent." With all three fragments in their possession, Kale and Lyra returned to Erythea, where Astria awaited them. The celestial alignment was drawing near, and the power of the astral serpent threatened to consume the world. But with the light of the cosmos, Kale and Lyra were ready. The final battle would take place beneath the heavens themselves. As the stars aligned, the astral serpent descended from the heavens, a massive, swirling form of darkness and stars. Kale and Lyra, together with their allies, stood united to face the creature. With the light of the cosmos in their hands, they launched their final assault, the light blazing through the skies like a new dawn. The serpent fought back, its cosmic powers threatening to tear them apart. But Kale and Lyra, bound by their love and courage, held fast. In a blinding flash, they struck the serpent with the full force of the light, sealing it away for eternity. The world was saved, and so Kale and Lyra's tale became legend once more. Their love, courage, and unyielding determination had once again triumphed over the darkness. Together, they ruled Erythea, their bond stronger than ever. And as the stars above shone brightly, they knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it side by side as rulers, warriors, and eternal partners.